start recording right now. I've missed one when we interviewed your father. I forgot to push record. We did the whole interview without recording it.
But that was the beginning.
That was the first one. So,
all right.
All right. Here we go. How you doing, Facebook community and the podcast community? We welcome back for another episode of Things My Mother Never Told Me, episode 20.
Hey, how are our listeners out there today?
All right.
Ooh, it's a good day.
Right, it's a good day. We got another special guest for you today. Son of our very first guest, Mr. Craig Ester. Tanya's gonna read your bio, and then we're gonna jump right into asking you some questions. All right?
All right.
All right. Today we have a very special person. His name is Craig Ester. He is an actor, a playwright, and teaching artist from Detroit, Michigan. He is an alumnus of Cass Technical High School, where he studied with Tony Award-winning educator Marilyn McCormick. He is also an alumnus of the BFA acting program at Ball State University and the Mosaic Youth Theater of Detroit's acting company. He enjoys giving back to young people through the art of teaching. He has had the opportunity to teach through professional theaters, including Shakespeare Festival in St. Louis, the Michigan Shakespeare Festival, and most recently as an actor teacher at Great Lakes Theater. Recent professional credits include Othello, where he played Othello with Hoosier Shakes. He played Macbeth. He was in Macbeth and he played Macbeth. And he strayed away from a little with The Last Cupcake, where he was the baker.
That's a story.
I found that very amusing. With the Shakespeare Festival in St. Louis. He played Othello in Othello. Wow, with the Little Door Theater. Much Ado About Nothing. He played Don Pedro with Shakespeare Royal Oak. King Lear. He played Edmund with the Portable Folio Productions. And Macbeth, Romeo and Juliet, and all that other stuff going on. That educational tour. So here we go.
All right. How you doing, Craig?
I'm good. Thank you all for having me.
You're so welcome.
Thank you for agreeing to be on here. This is well, we had another actor on here earlier this year, but this is something different though. And we felt that we needed to have you come on and talk a little bit about, because Shakespeare is something that a lot of us in our community don't venture near. And if they would take time, they would find out that this is well worth getting involved in. So let me start out with where you already said on your bio, one of the most important questions, you went to Cass.
Yes, I did. Yeah.
yeah. Cass is leading the charge for guests on this show by a wide margin.
Yeah.
Number one.
Yes. And then you studied at Ball State University.
Mm-hmm.
All right. So let's start out with the most obvious question.
Mm-hmm.
Why acting and why Shakespeare?
Sure. So acting was one of those things that was kind of in the back of my head for a long time. As a kid, I always make the joke that I saw Will Smith in Men in Black.
Okay.
And then I was at the church at New Prospect running around and we were playing Men in Black. We were like, trying to be Will Smith and all of those scenes. So that kind of little impulse was there. And I was always kind of interested in sort of expressing that way. I didn't take it seriously until I was in high school and I got into Mosaic Youth Theater of Detroit, which is a theater company that's here in town. And their whole purpose is to teach young people how to be professionals in theater, and they connect that to life. So it's this idea that you come in and, rehearsal starts at 6:30. It starts at 6:30, and you don't walk in at 6:35, because you walk in at 6:35, you have to apologize to the whole room for being late and have everybody look at you, and you know your lines, because if you don't know your lines, then they will put you out. Like, it's that kind of
wow.
And it was about teaching us. Yeah. Oh, they looked at our report cards, and some of us didn't always do that well. and they were like, well, you can't be in the show or you can't do this because so it was about fostering that professional growth, using the arts as sort of a teaching tool that way. So that's kind of the basis for the teaching artist stuff.
Right.
But I actually started to take it seriously as something I really wanted to do, because we went on a college tour and we went through New York to the Classical Theater of Harlem, which is an all-black classical theater company, and they did what is one of the best, might be the best show I've ever seen in my life, which was Anton Chekhov's The Three Sisters, and it was with all people of color.
Okay.
And it was starring the actress that played Sandra on The Cosby Show, and it starred and the actor, I can't remember his name, but played the grandfather in Cosby Show, and it was all people of color telling this very classical Russian story. And there's a few moments in there where, like, even though I was like 16, 17 maybe, I was so moved. And I couldn't believe that, like, you know, people that looked like me got to do that.
Yes.
And all of a sudden it was like the mind expands and nobody can take that away from you. And so from then on, I figured out that, you know, you can go to school for it, study. You know, it's not just for the gifted, you know, few or the talented 10th or whatever you want to call it. But it's for people who are really willing to work hard and really learn about the whole art form. And so, yeah, so from then on, that's when I kind of hopped on the train. I haven't gotten off yet.
Beautiful, beautiful. I mean, you know, there's always a moment in our lives when we figure out what it is we want to do. And there's nothing more beautiful than that moment when you just know this is for you. And acting, because we've seen you in quite a few things, and we're very impressed with the work that you did.
That's why we had to have you.
Right.
Well, thank you all for coming to those too. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, one of them we was late.
It happens.
Yeah. And they let us in right as a couple of casts were running down the aisle. We were coming up the aisle.
It's all right as long as you get in the room. That's all we get. As long as you get in the room.
Yeah. And plus, I want them tickets when you really make it big.
Hey, we're working on it.
Yeah.
Okay. So tell us what it's like for you, you know, playing a role like Othello.
Sure. So, and I'll try to, because I didn't really answer your why Shakespeare question, so I'll try to kind of link those together.
Yeah.
I got into doing Shakespeare specifically because my first year at Mosaic Youth Theater, and again, this is how I know that my life is not in my control, and I'm, you know, governed by luck, blessed, all of those things. Because the first year I ever got to Mosaic, there were two Shakespeare companies that were in town, and we got workshops with them both. And it was the Royal Shakespeare Company that come from London, because their artistic director was a man named Michael Boyd, who was a professor at the University of Michigan. And so when they came through, we got to have a workshop with them where they I was new in the company, and so I didn't get to do all the stuff, but I got to watch the stuff. And then they broke down a scene from Julius Caesar where they suspect a character of being one of the people that killed Caesar, and they killed this guy in the streets. And so they took everybody through the text and taught everybody about the language, and then they staged the scene with all the young people, and it was amazing. It was really moving. And then the Stratford Festival of Ontario, who's, you know, just up in Canada, a few hours away from us, they came down, and I got to actually more fully participate in this workshop. And they did this exercise that we call mapping the text. And what that basically means is that we were in an open dance studio, and they gave you a copy of a speech. My speech was the dagger speech from Macbeth. It's like the moment right before he goes to kill the king. He says, "This is the dagger I see before me," so on and so forth. And what this exercise is that you walk around the room, and you're walking in a certain direction. And every time you hit the word and, but, or, you have to change direction. Every time you hit a piece of punctuation, you have to change direction. And the idea was that they were teaching us to become aware of the fact that when characters are doing that, they're changing their thought, they're changing their mind, they're thinking through something. So he says, like, "Is this a dagger I see before me? The handle toward my hand. Oh, come, let me clutch these." So he's getting all these ideas as he's talking. And so you start to learn how a character thinks, how a person thinks. And as soon as they start to do that, I was like, oh, I think I understood it, like on some like weird innate level that I wasn't aware of. Right. And so I got really obsessed with it. From then on. So like my audition monologue for college was that speech. That's the speech that got me into my BFA acting program. And so yeah, that's where it started. As for like what it's like to play somebody like Othello, that was a show where, because I ended up doing it twice in the same year. I did it that fall and then ended up doing it that summer, like out of nowhere. So I got to kind of double up on it. When you're doing a full show as a character, and when you're really having to take on like the big monster of like, you're the title character, one of the things I had to learn was that, and it's something that you get reminded about over and over and over again. And when I work with students, I tell them this: the biggest thing to remember is that it's not about you.
Okay.
It's completely, utterly not about you. Because when you're the lead, you're gonna mess up. It's just gonna happen.
Yeah.
Because there's too much stuff in the there's too much stuff in the show. In that show, I was in all but maybe 3 or 4 scenes over the course of like 2.5 hours. And so your mind, even during the intermission, when you have like 10 minutes to take a break, your mind is still going because because when the character comes on the stage in the next scene, for them, it's like no time has passed. Right. Which means that you don't get a chance to go, wait, let me sit down, let me do. It's like, no, okay, how do I get ready for the next scene? And then so you have to, so you're forced to lean on everybody that you work with to help, because it's their job also to hold you up. Your job to make them look good. Right. So it's all of our job to make each other look good. And it's, some days you come in and you're like, I'm not feeling it. I'm tired. I've been doing whatever I've been doing before I got to the theater. And somebody will say something or do something that like sparks energy.
Okay.
Gets you excited, gets you ready for it. Because even though you love it, it's still a job. Yeah. Sometimes you come into work, sometimes and you're like, I really love this, but I gotta get ready for it. So yeah, so that's where you learn that if you work really hard and you trust that you worked hard, then your work will show up and you don't have to force it to be there because you already did that work.
Okay. Wow.
I guess like preparing for a test, huh?
Yeah.
I enjoyed
Lawrence
I enjoyed Lawrence Fishburne, and that's the only time I saw Othello.
Oh yeah, that was the first one I ever saw. I saw it in college. I was in the bottom of the library in the basement watching, like, I think it was a DVD. Yeah, watching a DVD of it.
And see, I'm not into classical either, but I did love Romeo and Juliet. So,
oh yeah, that's one of my. I have a whole diatribe I go on, but I don't have to go on it if you have a back.
No, I just love that. And then, like you said, you never think that we would be into classical music or classical plays, but I love the theater and I love art. So even though I never went into any of them myself.
Right. And so I'll share this with you. We were talking earlier. I had to take an English lit class I went back to school this semester. And so this was, can you see that?
Yeah.
That was one of the books that we had to read for the class.
Very nice.
And the thing about it is, for those that don't know, No Fear Shakespeare has the classical Shakespeare lines, but on the next opposite page, it has it in today's English. And so you can read, because for those who aren't versed in Shakespeare, we can read so much of it, and then we like, yeah. But this brings it like right clear. And I was amazed when I read this, and we'll get back to this conversation. I was amazed at how much of a personality Hamlet was. Yeah. Because I saw one movie about Hamlet, and they made it out to be so somber and dry and deadpan. But when I read this, I said, that's not the Hamlet I read about. This guy was a practical joker. He was he could have been the court jester if he wasn't a prince.
Yeah, he's hilarious. And not only is he hilarious, he's hilarious, but doing it tactically. Because he says, I'm going to put on this antic disposition. I'm choosing to act like this so that nobody can tell what I'm thinking. And that's what makes him so interesting, because he's like, I have this mission to get revenge for my father, but getting that revenge is so difficult and so emotionally painful for me that I have to put up all these walls and these barriers. And and one of the tragic things about the character is that by the end of the play, no one really knew who Hamlet was, right? But Hamlet. Yeah. And because he had to keep all that stuff inside, it just eats at him over the 4 hours. Yes. The 4 hours.
Boy, you taking me there.
It's beautiful.
Right. Yeah. So I saw the Mel Gibson adaptation of it.
Oh, yep.
And to me, that was much, much better than the one where the classical actors were doing, because he felt like he embodied what I was reading.
He really became it for real.
So that was my little venture out into it. But I find I love Shakespeare. So let's get back to you.
Okay.
You well, you got this in bold letters, so we're gonna talk about this. You doing teaching with young folks. Is that right?
Yeah. So that's just clear that up, because it's not like in bold, like I was just trying to put it in. So any actor who's watching this will know, like, we do a lot of bios. I'm sure ministers, you do a lot of bios if you go and preach somewhere. So I literally, I have so many different bios that I've written that sometimes I have to like splice stuff together. And so when you all asked me for one, I had to pull one from like my website and one from like the last.
Yeah, and I'm over saying, okay.
So I did. And so when I put it together, I sent it to you all, and I was like, it bolded that middle section, but I can't do anything about it now. But yeah.
But that's important though.
Mm-hmm.
It really is. It really is. So you you still teach, right, when you get the opportunity?
Yeah, I'm gonna be teaching this starting in December. Hopefully, yeah, I'm teaching 2 classes at the Livonia Community Theater here. One class is called Speaking Shakespeare, which is going to be taking students through how to speak the verse and how to understand the character, and they're going to learn how to speak monologues and do Shakespeare scenes by the end of that class. Then I'm doing another class that's about audition preparation and how you get yourself ready to go in and audition for somebody. So it's something I kind of backed into. You know, you have those things in life where you start by thinking, okay, I want to do this, and then you run into all these other things
right
along the way. I got started teaching because back, it was like 2016, I was starting to actually go back into acting again. I hadn't done it for a while just because life, goes where it goes. Right. And I sent in an audition to Michigan Shakespeare Festival. And I had auditioned for them before for their like main stage summer season. And it was one of those where like, okay, they're not going to hire me, but I should be on their radar. So let me just, send this thing off. And they were like, hey, you want to call back? And I was like, okay, sure. And then I did the callback, and they're like, okay, so you're going to be in Macbeth and you're going to be in Romeo and Juliet. And I was like, what? Because, sometimes you just don't see it coming.
Right.
And then the thing I ended up discovering through that program, their education tour, what they do is you do 2 plays in rotating reps. So that season, it's usually Macbeth and Romeo and Juliet. And you'll go to different schools, and you'll perform either one of the plays or both of the plays on a given day. And at the end of the show, the students get like in 20 minutes to like half an hour or so where they get to sit down with us and talk to us about the language, talk to us about the show. And through that, I started to learn that I really do love that moment where, so one of my favorite stories about it is during Romeo and Juliet, the first time Romeo and Juliet kiss, the way it's written in the play, it's out of nowhere. It's literally written in a 14-line sonnet between 2 characters, just straight lines. Like Shakespeare sticks one of his sonnets into the middle of the play, and at the end of the sonnet, they kiss. And so when they kissed, we had a very excited group of freshmen, and one girl just shouts as they're kissing, "Go, Roro!" she got so into it that she was like, "Yeah!" Like they were so into it and so excited. And I love those moments where they figure out that the characters are human. I always tell when I was teaching Romeo and Juliet last year for Great Lakes Theater, I would always tell my students, you guys think of this as like a really far away thing, but you're teenagers and you can understand this. And they would go, well, how can we understand this? And I would say, well, think of it like this. Romeo's a guy who asked out a girl who doesn't want him. And now he's upset, and his friends are trying to cheer him up. And they would go, oh.
Yeah, you definitely have to do that.
And Juliet is a girl who has been sheltered all her life. Her parents don't let her date. They don't really let her go anywhere. And she gets to her first party, and she goes to her very first party, and she finds out a boy likes her, and she gets really excited. Can you all understand that? And they go, oh, okay. And then they sort of get into it, because the play is, and I'll stop the diatribe so you can get the next question. But the play is a romantic comedy.
Yes.
Until Mercutio dies. Until Mercutio dies, it's a hilarious comedy about these 2 families who don't like each other.
Yeah,
and who end up falling in love. And as soon as you frame it that way, and they figure out that the play is 75% like inappropriate humor, then they start to understand.
And they love it then.
Yeah, oh, completely.
I mean, what is your, how do you remember all those words in that language?
Sure.
I mean, my goodness.
So it's sort of when I went to school, it's sort of beaten into you. The way the form of the verses is iambic pentameter, which I'm sure you've been talking about looking at Hamlet. And so iambic pentameter is basically when Shakespeare's writing in verse, each line will have 10 syllables, and they'll alternate between stressed and unstressed syllables. So you'll have, but soft, what light through yonder window breaks. It is he, and Juliet is the sun. So it's got that very codified rhythm. And so for the stuff that's in the verse like that, it's actually easier to memorize because you're actually following the rhythm. And it's like if you learn a song. Yep. Like we tell kids, like if you can remember like long forms of stuff from like Hamilton, all those raps, because you can remember all the rhythms. You know, we have kids who can do like all of I'm not throwing away my shot, and they do the whole song. And I'm like, it's the same thing. Yeah. It's the same specific. Oh my goodness. And so
I was amazed at that.
Oh yeah,
I was amazed.
We can talk about that too. That's one of my favorites.
I had no idea whatsoever.
But yeah, you do the work. Yeah, you do the work on that and you learn the rules of it. And once you learn the rules of it, it actually gets really easy because you'll know when something's wrong because you'll be off beat. And everybody else in the cast will go, wait, no, I think you're missing some syllables, brother. And it happens. I have been in Macbeth and done like well over 100 shows of Macbeth. And there was one day that I was, doing a scene, talking to somebody, and I said something, and I thought, and I started counting in my head the syllables, and I was like, I think this is wrong. But by the time I got to the end of that thought, somebody else had already said something to me. And we were quiet for a second, and I was like, oh, and then I got back into it. But it still happens. Like I said before, because you're playing the lead and you have all of that verse.
Yes,
and, something's gonna happen, and that person was able to like look me in the eye, give me a second to be like, come back, and then we got back into it. It's all about learning the rules. And I mean, we did literal days at school where we would run up and down the stairs in our in a lecture hall, and we would have to speak text, and if it wasn't clear, we had to keep running. Wow. So we run up and down the stairs going, tomorrow and tomorrow and tomorrow creeps in this petty pace from day to day to the last syllable of recorded time. and our teacher would be like, and our teacher would go, oh, you all weren't in unison, so you have to do it again until you get it in unison.
Wow. So
it'll teach you to follow the rules and move through the text. Or they would do we would get in a circle and we'd have a scene and someone would say something and the teacher would point to somebody who did not have that line and go, what did that mean? What do you think that means? Because it's not just about knowing the meaning of your lines, it's about knowing the meaning of everybody's lines, so that when you're listening to them on stage, you understand what's being communicated.
Right.
Yeah. And then we would get speeches, and people think I'm crazy when I tell this, but we would get speeches, and our professor would make us go word by word, one word on every line of a sheet of paper, and you would have to write the definition of every single word that was in the speech.
Wow.
And you weren't just like writing whatever the basic definition of it was. You have to write a definition in context of the speech. So if a word has 3 or 4 definitions, you have to make a choice about which word is the right one. Your choice determines how you're going to communicate it to the audience. She even made us define the. Like the word the. It's like, well, why are they saying the? I got to know why they're saying the, because if you don't know why they're saying the, I'm not going to understand you. And you would really call you out on it.
Oh my goodness. And I was reading about Shakespeare and how he influenced the English language. Some of the things that we were saying, what was wild goose chase and foregone conclusion. I mean, I've actually used those words and I had no idea.
Right.
That was Shakespeare.
Right. One of the things when we read Hamlet, we had to point out some of the colloquialisms that we use today that came from Hamlet.
Yeah.
Because there are several of them in there. Something's rotten in Denmark.
Yep.
Those type of things.
So it's a knock-knock joke. Hamlet starts with a knock-knock joke.
Really?
If the play starts and Francisco, I can't remember if it's Francisco or Bernardo, one of the guards says, "Who's there?" Right.
That's right.
It immediately is, and Macbeth is filled with a character that has a monologue where he's going knock knock knock, knock, who's there in the name of Beelzebub? Like it's, you know.
Oh my goodness. Yeah.
So he
See?
can go from being heightened and saying things like, if this ship was on the sea and the waves were so high, I would be glad to cross it to get back to my love. And at the same time, he's making he's starting Romeo and Juliet with just a series of sex jokes. It's you know, he's doing the highest and the lowest, because when you went to the Globe Theater, you had the groundlings, who are the everyday people who might not have been as educated as the people who are sitting high up in the stands. And so the language had to be able to be delivered to both the top and the bottom. So Hamlet has a line in it where Horatio says, the air bites shrewdly, and then I think it's a comma, and then he says, it is very cold. Okay. So you talk to people on top, the air bites shrewdly. They know that means it's cold, but the people in the ground, the people
down there wanted you to say cold.
No, so he's like, so Horatio would go, air bites shrewdly. Then go look at the audience, go, it's very cold, and then they're going in the scene,
and they don't even know the jokes on them.
Yeah.
We got a question for you. Ray Nelson wants to know, what influence did Todd have on you?
Well, you know, we did well, that's funny.
Let us know who Todd is.
Yes, Todd is my uncle. You know, he was doing this theater thing while he was in dental school, or not in dental school, but in like undergrad in Atlanta. He would do plays and also be studying his biology major. He actually, funny enough, one of the people that directed him in a play when he was in Atlanta was the director Kenny Leon. Kenny Leon is the director that did Denzel Washington's Fences.
Okay.
He did the Raising the Sun movie with P. Diddy and Felicia Rashad. You know, so he's got some theater roots in him too. So there might be a connection there. So I think from him, one of the things I learned is that, you know, I worked at his business for like 3.5 years. I was his sort of office manager for a few years at his dental practice. And the thing I learned about him is how to be practical and how to run a business. And he was always stressing to me, like, you know, you have these arts things that you do, but you have to be able to integrate them with how do you run a business? How do you promote a brand? How do you basically boil down who you are and leverage the skills you have in order to build a sustainable sort of business model for yourself, so that you can always be working and be taken care of. And that's why you know how you hear things,
right?
And then, you know, a few years later, you kind of get hit in the head and you go, oh, that's what he was talking about.
Yeah, that's why we give you just the basics. You go from there.
Yeah. And so that's a big thing that, you know, he always would put on me, like, you know, you're doing theater education, you have all this background, all the skills that you learn, you should be using to advance yourself, to forge yourself in some ways. So that's a big influence that he had on me.
All right, that's beautiful. So I'm gonna say one thing, and then I got something else for you. You know, because you were talking about the training that you went through in school to like when Tanya asked you about learning those lines. It all, you know, when you were talking, it sounded like you were going through what football players go through when they practice. The same type, same, even in the circle, where they just point at you, because, you know, football, they point at you. You have to run into the bull ring.
Oh yeah.
But in your case, well, you know that. But in your case, you had to know what somebody else's line meant. That is wild. That is wild. But now we know why one would be so well versed, because if you can't just know your lines, you got to know everybody's lines.
No, and that's just like you said, it's a lot of words.
Well, you know, and for those that don't know, you know, Shakespeare is very influential in a lot of what we do. But he's also, because, you know, he was one of the people that was commissioned to rewrite the Bible in the English language. But a lot of his work has a lot of religious overtones to it, and, you know, where it gets very moralistic. And I think that, you know, in Hamlet, that's why Hamlet appeared to have such a struggle with that thing. So, but what I wanted to ask you, because I want to go, you know, you got a lot of stuff, and I want to get into as much of it as I can. I know that you had wrote a play. You wrote one. Have you finished it?
So yeah, for, you know, as much as we can call, finish only means I stopped messing with it for a while. So I wrote a play this year called the Crown Forum, which is sort of about the tension between who the people in our lives expect us to be, what they want from us, and who we really are and who we want to be. And so I wrote that play starting earlier this year and had a few readings of it. And yeah, it's been going out to some theater companies, getting some responses. You know, we don't have a home for it yet in terms of it getting a production, but you know, we're working on it. And the main thing about doing all of that writing and stuff is that after the pandemic is over, people are going to need stories to tell.
Yes.
So, you know, I say this to my friends all the time, and I got this from listening to one of my favorite movie directors is Kevin Smith. So if you've ever seen like Clerks or Mallrats or things like that,
right.
He does a lot of podcasting himself. And one of the things he always says is that I realized after a long time that nobody's going to tell my stories about my friends and my people. So I have to be the one to do it. So don't say, why did somebody else get that opportunity? You say, why is it not me? And then get to work. So I've been kind of living by that kind of code this year.
Right. Well, you know, that's a real important concept, because a lot of times we I don't know if you've ever done this, but you know, us older folks, we'll see something out there and say, man, I thought about that 20 years ago. Mm-hmm. But you just thought about it. You didn't do anything. Yeah. And then eventually somebody else comes up and does it. Mm-hmm. And so, like you said, your story, your friend's story, somebody's going to tell the story. Mm-hmm. Might as well be you.
Yeah.
So get off your butt and tell your story.
Especially Lin-Manuel from Hamilton, you know, he said about his first musical is a musical called In the Heights. And In the Heights is about his neighborhood, the people that he grew up with. And one of the kind of struggles that's in the story is a character who comes home from college who has essentially like lost her scholarship. She got really overwhelmed, and her parents are going to have to figure out some way to financially help her go back to school. And when he and the director of Hamilton, Thomas Kail, presented that idea to the show to a producer before they, you know, became who they were, there was a producer that said, well, that doesn't sound dramatic enough. Why can't and he's like, it's a Latino neighborhood. Why isn't there any violence? Why isn't there this? Why isn't there that?
Yeah.
And he had to say, that's not the story I want to tell, because that's not my people.
That's right.
And, you know, somebody might tell your story, but they might tell the wrong story, or they might not, you know, they might not take the time to really understand you, you know, you and where you come from. So he always says, nobody's going to make your favorite thing. Nobody's going to make that thing that you want to see in the world. So you have to go make that thing you want to see in the world.
That's right. Cool. Got another question for you.
Mm-hmm.
Eve Pisticini. What's up, Eve? Hey. She said, you come from a very talented family. You seem to be in your element. What would you do career-wise if not this?
You know, that's a hard one, because anytime I think of like, well, if I'm not doing this thing that's within what I do, I'm probably going to run over to this aspect of it. If I couldn't work like professionally in theater at all, I might teach high school theater, or I've always talked about like possibly running a theater company as well. Mm-hmm. So, you know, even if I'm not doing all the other sort of artistic involvement things, maybe being producer and helping somebody else's work get out there. I think I would always just be in the realm of the arts, because that's where, you know, I've always felt at home.
Mm-hmm. Okay, cool. So we talked about it a little bit. We didn't get, because this is the first time we've actually had people asking questions of the guests.
Wow.
Yeah. So we
usually
special.
Just look at the comments.
So
okay.
Right. So you wrote your play, and I know I sat in on the first reading, if I'm not mistaken, and I was telling our guests when we did our 11th episode, we did a recap of our first 10. We were talking about we wanted you on, and I was telling them how I watched watched the reading, and we were all in. Everybody was listening, was in. And then we went to the break. I'm thinking we're coming back and we're gonna, get some more. And then you just said, boom, that's it. Okay, we're done.
Yeah.
I'm like, hey.
Yeah, he got me all in tune.
What happened? And I'm like,
sure.
Did they resolve this issue?
Yes.
So I'm really, I'm telling everybody, and when it comes out, those who don't, you need to go check this out, because just from what I saw, I want to know how your resolution came.
Okay.
and what happened, because I was vested. The young people that you had reading the lines were, to me, very talented. I couldn't believe they were just doing a reading, and they put so much into it. So that impressed me. But now, by you telling me how you guys train, I can see where that would happen. So you I know you got some other projects in the works. Tell us about those.
Okay, sure. First thing I'll say about that is I'm so proud of the friends I have. They're so talented. They work so hard. So anytime I get to sort of show them off and make a showcase for people who are not just me, it's always really nice. So the other project I'm working on right now is actually kind of an outgrowth of that idea. So I have another play that I'm working on that I'm actually hopefully real close to finishing. Hopefully we'll be done like today, like as soon as we get off of this. I'm literally putting like the finishing touches on it. And it's a play that's in verse. It's in iambic pentameter in Shakespeare's style. And so to prepare to write that play, I gave myself this kind of ridiculous challenge to write because I wanted to learn how to write in verse, to write sonnets. To write a sonnet. So I would post a sonnet every night for about 30 or 31 days. And a sonnet, for anybody who doesn't know, is a form of poetry that Shakespeare famously, he wrote like 153 or 154 of these.
Somewhere around 150 some. I know that.
I got the book of them upstairs somewhere, but I usually, I think,
not to be.
Yeah. But it's a 14-line poem. It's a 14-line poem that is in that iambic pentameter form. So 10 syllables per line, 14 lines. And it's just a nice little quick sort of storytelling idea. So for me wanting to learn, I would just basically get home at night, and like around 11 or so at night, I would just sit at the computer and I would just write one and post it on Facebook, basically to make myself be accountable, So like somebody could tell me, hey, I didn't see one, where is it?
Right.
So I did that for the month of October. And then what ended up happening was that I had now all of this material that I'd written. I thought, well, what can I do with this that's not just about me and not just about like, look at this cool stuff I did. And so a good friend of mine named John Deddy, who I went to college with, he and I basically are working together, and we're producing a web series that we call it Sonnets for Sanity, because they helped keep me sane during all the craziness, because again, this is where we say, life is not in your control. Everything is, happens. Everything has a place that it happens. Because I started doing it. And as I started writing it, we had the Breonna Taylor verdict happened. We had Ruth Bader Ginsburg passed away. We had all of the craziness with the election and the debates. We had all these crazy, like historic moments were all happening in this packed space where I was writing, and I could not have planned that. There's no way, and then, of course, in our family, we had a loss in our family that also happened right as I was doing this. And so I was just, with a pen every day, just, writing things down. And so, our project is called Sonnets for Sanity. It's a web series. You can find it on Facebook if you just search Sonnets for Sanity. And we do 2 episodes per week. And what I basically did was I gave these sonnets to a bunch of my, performer friends. And what they're doing is they're interpreting them in whatever way they want. I tell them they can do whatever they want as long as they don't change the words, because we want to keep the words.
That's right.
I picked all of them, so that's real important. But so they're recording these virtual performances, and we're putting 2 of them up per week, and we're using that to raise money for all of our local theaters and the theater companies that we've worked at. Because people don't know right now, the arts in this country are taking a huge hit. They're taking, and particularly live performance, we figured out how to put people on planes in close proximity to each other, but we can't figure out how to put them, in the theater. And we have, people in the arts understand that, we need to figure out how to get kids going back to school. We do need to figure out transportation. We know we're not number 1 on the list of things that need to be saved, but at the same time, we're just not on the list at all. We just want to be on the list of things that, the government and everyone is working to bring back, because people don't know the theater is actually a multi-billion-dollar industry. If you think about all of the towns that have theaters, if you think about like just the concentration of Broadway, all of those, it's a multi-billion-dollar industry, and no one's working. Almost no one is
One
working.
play is a career, a whole lifetime.
It really can.
They be
Yeah.
years.
Yeah. So we're shouting out theaters that we kind of know and love, and pointing people to donate to them to help to raise money, because I mean, selfishly, we want them to be there, when we get back, because we all want to work, but also our cultural institutions are extremely important. Imagine if this happens during the time that Motown is around, and Motown goes down because they can't go into a studio and record or perform. Think about all the art that's lost, and think about like the fact that all those shows everybody talks about on Netflix and on HBO and all those, they can't, for a long time they couldn't film or do anything because of COVID. So now that's not just actors who are out of work. That's the people who move the lights, the people who make the food, the people who drive the trucks, the people who, take tickets at the theater. All of those people don't have jobs now. So it's not even just, save the artist, it's save all of the people who, work in our connected to this industry. Yeah, so we're trying to help in any way we can through the Science for Sanity show. So we're on YouTube, we're on Facebook, we're on Twitter, Instagram. So you can, and it's all if you just put in Science for Sanity. So that's the big project right now.
Right. Wow, that's beautiful. And because you're absolutely right. I mean, and we understand that we got to be safe, we got to be careful, but by the same token, certain industries, like you said, weren't on the list, and when they finally get on the list, at the bottom of the list. Yeah. But it's still people who are losing their jobs, their livelihood, can't feed their families because for something that they didn't do.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that's very admirable for you to come up with that project, and so Brandis is putting that up on our page. Whenever you give us a site, she tries to type it up and put it up there so people can see the link and try to.
Okay.
Yeah, so that's good. We appreciate that. So that's the project. Now, and I know was the one that your father and James did. Was that the very first one?
That was that was episode 2. Yeah,
episode 2. Yeah, okay. Yeah. Because I missed it. That's the only one that I got to see.
Yeah, they're all archived. So if you go to our Facebook page or go to our YouTube page, they're all there. So even if you missed it when it came out, they're all archived. So you can go back and see anyone you want.
Yeah. Okay.
I guess when I saw it, I missed it. I knew what it was going to be a series, but I thought it was, I was coming in at the beginning of the series and cool, because when your mother sent me a invitation to it, but that was, I think, during the time we were doing this.
No, you're good. Yeah, they're up there, so you can watch them. You can watch them anytime. There's no other time. And it's the series is there are over 30 sonnets, so the series is going to go. For a little while.
Okay, cool. And so when we have guests on here, when they have stuff coming up, if you just send me a link, I'll post it on my page as well, so we can keep the information going, so people can keep up with what you're doing. Because I think that the reason why we have people on here is that I think it's important that we get a well-rounded view of the world and what's available to us. And so I got 2 questions. We can't really get to all we want to ask you because we just ain't got the time.
But I did want to ask one question about the one where you strayed away from Shakespeare for a minute. The last cupcake where you were the baker.
Okay.
How did that happen?
Okay, so go ahead and answer that, then I'll ask you my questions.
Sure. So, sometimes you get jobs and they have caveats. No, it was so the audition when I was going to play Macbeth at this classical theater in St. Louis. The tour that they do is they perform both for communities and in schools, and we would do workshops and stuff. So they would have sort of a teen to adult show, which was Macbeth, and then there was a kids show, which was Last Cupcake. So it was part of the job to sort of do both. It was really fun.
I thought it was. I said, that was a fun thing for him.
Yeah, they had a local playwright named Nancy Bell from St. Louis, she's hilarious. She basically did this story that was like a riff on the Gingerbread Man, where there's a baker who's making cupcakes in his bakery, and all of a sudden one of them comes to life and he has to chase them around.
Yeah,
it's a really sweet story, but that ends up being like the way to solve the problem of the cupcake is to feed the community and take care of everybody around you. It was a
wonderful,
really beautiful piece. So yeah, just as rewarding as doing Shakespeare.
Right.
Oh, that was fun. I was reading it and I went out there on the site. And I
Yeah,
read
it's a little left
was
turn.
I said, what?
Okay, so now, so what I'm gonna do now, I'm gonna ask you two questions, but I'm gonna ask you one. Every show, show, I don't know if you know it now. I don't know if you've watched any, had a chance to watch any episodes, but did you see the title is Things My Mother Never Told Me?
Sure.
So we always ask our guests, is there something that you've discovered on your journey that you weren't, your mother or father, well, it's really mother, but didn't prepare you for? Like when you came upon, it was like, wow, I don't know, I really wasn't ready for this. Wish I had been. Is there anything that you can think of?
So there's a combination of thoughts about this, because I thought about the title when I before because it's, you know, did she tell me something and I just didn't listen to it until 10 years later? Or is there something in life that I really came up against? I think one thing that your parents can kind of prepare you for, but you don't always hear, and you won't really, you know, there are just some things in life you don't understand until you're in the moment.
Mm-hmm.
You know, and one of the things I think that I wasn't ready for, kind of taken aback by, was, you know, being in college, studying this art form, studying acting, was the fact that when I walked in, I was spending so much time trying to be what my teachers wanted me to be, trying to be what my friends wanted me to be, and I didn't understand that I was compromising who I was, or shape-shifting who I was, because I wanted to, you know, be liked by everybody, be what everybody wanted me to be, you know, try to please everybody. Yeah. And it took me a long time to figure out that this whole journey of going through the arts and doing all that is actually just a journey back to myself and figuring out who I am. And I have only started to succeed in any way because I recognize that not everybody's going to like you. Not everybody's going to be your best friend. And when you you make the choice to radically be yourself, as opposed to trying to be what everybody wants you to be, then you start to vibrate those things that are for you. Then those things start to attract, because you're really being true to yourself. So I might have been told that 20 years ago and just didn't understand. But you know, that's something I discovered in life, is that the times I've been most successful, or when I've been the truest to who I am.
Yeah, when you be genuine, yes.
Yeah. Wow, that's a good answer. That's a real good answer. And you know, it's we say this every week because most of our guests are your age, younger. but it's amazing. It's amazing. But y'all really ain't that young when I think about it. But it's amazing at the amount of wisdom that you guys, your generation, has accumulated over the years. Because what you just said is a very insightful thing that people need to know, and people coming behind you, even people older than you, need to realize that it ain't about trying to please everybody. It's about trying to be who you are. And if that don't please them, then oh well. So that's a good lead in though to my next question then. We know Shakespeare, and like you said earlier, one of the things that led you to it was you saw African American cast performing the arts like they were, and it was wow. What is it like for you being in this field when is it limited in the amount of African Americans that are in Shakespeare now?
Sure. So what I can say from my experience working at the theaters I've worked at is yes and no, depends on where you are. Okay. So an area like our Detroit theater scene is doing decently well in terms of, because one of the things I always try to stress to people is that when Shakespeare wrote these plays, he did very little research. He didn't really set race. He kind of set gender, but even gender was fluid back then because the boys were playing all the girls' roles because you couldn't have the women on stage. Right. You know, there's a lot of stuff about Shakespeare and classical theater in general. I mean, if you read a Christopher Marlowe play or you read a De la Barca play from those times, the plays were written in this way that was very open and very sort of general, so that you could interpret them in any way that you saw fit, which means that Shakespeare production or classical theater production is meant to model the world that it exists in today. So if you want to be successful as a company, the most successful companies doing these plays are the companies that embrace that. So like the public theater in New York does that all the time. Their founder, Joseph Papp, back in I want to say the 70s, I don't quote me on that date, but in the 70s was putting people like James Earl Jones on stage playing King Lear and doing all those kinds of things. And it sparked excitement because people were seeing themselves on stage. So it's still got a lot of work to do. It's got a lot of work to do because we have some folks with limited imaginations out here. And sometimes we have to kind of pull them along to let them know that these plays are not just for a specific group of people with a specific skin tone, you know? And so there's a lot of work that needs to be done. So I've been lucky in that I've gotten to play a lot of these roles, but it still needs to widen out for more people of color and more women of color, because in those forms, women of color have been kind of the most limited. So we had Cleopatra for years, and Antony and Cleopatra played by white women over and over and over again. They're like, well, she's Greek mixed with the African. I'm like, but African is still in there, and you're not putting the, So I've had this with lots of people. I've had this argument with so many people about, who have to have imagination, because if it doesn't reflect our world, your company's not going to be successful, because a theater company, every theater is a community theater. It doesn't matter what level it's at. If you're not reflecting your community, then you're not going to survive,
Right.
So,
Right.
Yeah.
Right. Wow. Good answer. Good answer. So yeah, that's good. So what else did you have on your sheet? Did you want to ask?
No, not really.
Wait. So what do you see as your you got a couple plays that you got in the works waiting to get something done, but while you're waiting on that, what is your next big move? Especially coming out of COVID, when we finally come out of it.
Sure. Coming out of COVID, my big thing right now is to make as much work as possible, to make as much material that can be used in all kinds of different places, because my goal is really to and it varies depending on what the project is, but my goal is to create a sustainable model for doing theater that will allow me to actually make my full living in it. A, but B, I wanna tell more stories about people whose stories are not often getting told. Okay. And I want to try to create some kind of venue for that to happen. So that's what's kind of rolling around in my brain right now.
Oh, that's wonderful.
We got another question, but you already answered, but we're gonna let you answer it again because your mama asked it. So what was your inspiration for the Sonnets for Sanity?
It was that idea of trying to learn how to write in the verse form, but to sort of help give it a little bit more variety. It was also learning when you're writing in verse, or when you're performing in verse, the thing that starts to happen is that you actually start to think in that ba-bum, 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 ba-bum kind of rhythm. And what I discovered about writing and being a storyteller through that is that the best ones came out of me being the most truthful about how I was feeling, about what I was doing. And it could be anything from writing a piece that was about, the Breonna Taylor verdict that ended with a line, I'm going to misquote it, but ended with a line that there's only justice for bullets that miss.
Yeah.
And something like that is not something I can plan or something I can decide is going to be a line. It's something I discover because I'm going, how do I feel? What do I think? And how do I articulate that in a truthful way? And so that's something I learned, is that if it's not honest, it should not be on the page. Yes. Because if it's dishonest, what's the point?
Yes.
Right. Well, something that you said, again, you just repeated it with you can't make this stuff up.
Yeah.
And it's like when talent and inspiration coincide with God's timing, what wonderful things they produce. And so it's not an accident. And it's good that you were in that mindset to be able to capture or work on capturing something that'll last for ages. And that's wonderful.
Mm-hmm. And you were brought up to see Jesus. You did all that acting in the church, and I'm just saying, train up a child in the way it should go. I say it all the time.
Yeah, and the only caveat I'll add to just the portion about talent, because I say this to students all the time when I get to work with them, is talent is just an innate instinct for something. That's all talent is. What keeps you working and what gets you hired and what keeps you moving forward is honing craft and skill. One of my favorite writers is the composer Stephen Sondheim. He's Pulitzer Prize winning, one of the greatest musical theater writers of all time. And he has a quote that says, and it's literally the background on my computer. It says, "Art is craft, not inspiration." Just because you're inspired to do something doesn't mean it's going to be good. Right. Because you can be inspired, but if you don't know how to articulate, if you don't know how to, tell that story, and it's something I always point out, especially for like folks that look like us, because we have a thing in the Black community of going, oh, well, that person's just gifted. And it's like, well, they might be, but they also had to learn how to do the thing they do. They had to learn that it has structure. They had to learn how to fix it when it's not working. They had to learn so many things, and all of those things can be learned. You can be taught, and if you have drive and you're really focused on learning how to do a thing instead of having talent for a thing, that's always going to carry you further. So that's that's what I would add on to that.
Right, that's absolutely right. Because we know that you always like to use sports analogies. We know that most athletes that are extremely successful are talented and they work at it.
Yeah. Exactly.
You don't just roll out the bed, and it's okay in high school to roll out the bed and be better than everybody else. But when you get beyond high school, you got to put some work in.
Yeah.
At whatever you're doing, because the guy who is not as talented as you is working while you sleeping.
Yeah. You can be as fast a running back as you want, but if you can't figure out how to get good field position, then it doesn't matter how fast you are, because you're going to get knocked down every time.
Every time. Yeah. So that definitely transcends into art, without a doubt. Without a doubt. And if you don't keep working on your craft, it's like anything else. If you don't work on it, if you don't use it, you're going to lose it.
Yep. It's a muscle. Muscles atrophy, you know?
Yeah. Wow. That's great. So you got any other questions for Craig?
No, he summed it up all right. I was just, like I said, I went into Shakespeare last night and I was looking up and I was so interested. I was reading the sonnets and I was like, now I'm supposed to be doing something totally different. And I done went all, just what I'm saying, when I was looking at some of the stuff about the sonnets and how his parents were literate, they were saying, and I'm like, and here they birthed somebody that's
one thing she does is when we get ready to do a show, she studies and prepares for that show. So she gonna find out some stuff.
I was all in.
Right. Yeah.
And then that's what I'm saying, to come up with, the word fashionable. I was like, that was Shakespeare? I was like, I learned so much stuff.
He came up in a pickle. Jealousy is the green-eyed monster. Like all of that. He would just make up words.
I'm like, really? I cannot believe that. And that was so long. We talking about 1600s.
Yeah.
He come up with words, but because he was such a talented, I'll use that word again, talented writer, that he could take words and put them in such a way that they would stand the test of time.
Yeah.
And so that's why we still use stuff that he said, that he created, even if we didn't know. I'm sort of like that too. People find out later on, they keep listening to me.
All right. Right on.
So one thing, is there anything else that you want to say to the people that you haven't said yet that you might have thought about?
I just want to say thank you for having me on. Please, support the arts, support your local businesses, because we want to keep the cultural sector of this country is so important. When the pandemic happened, everybody started watching Netflix and they watched Hamilton on Disney Plus. Everybody that you saw in Hamilton that's a theater performer or put that show together is not working right now.
Yeah.
So however you can be a blessing to those people, there's lots of organizations. There's an organization called Be an Arts Hero. They're doing amazing things. There's the Actors Fund, who's helping to support artists who are not being able to work. Broadway Cares Equity Fights AIDS. All of those organizations are helping to keep those artists taken care of, so that when we come back and you want to turn to them again, they'll be there. Because imagine you turn on your Netflix and there's nothing there because nobody can make anything. You don't want to live in that world, neither do I.
No, without a doubt. What are we going to do when we don't have anything but each other to look at?
Theater's not going to go away.
It's not. No, it's not.
No, it's not going to go away.
Yeah. So when you do your writing now, are you doing it? You're doing it under your name. You're not using a pseudonym, are you?
No. Yeah.
You know that's a joke because the name you had on your Zoom account when you came on.
Oh yeah, because so for background people who don't know, I do a lot of different readings of Shakespeare plays with friends every weekend, and so we have to put our characters' names in, and so there were some names on here that I think they were from Richard III, I think maybe the names that were up on the screen, which is weird because Richard was a few weeks ago, so I don't know why it keeps going back to those names.
Right.
But, yeah.
Okay.
This has been a joy.
Right. We thank you.
Thank you. It's been fun.
You shared some really good stuff with us, and hopefully the people have been educated, informed, and will support the arts, and as well as Shakespeare.
Yeah. It's just funny how we have you on here, and then right before that, he was already had one of the books.
It's not in our control, you know.
Yeah, it's like
there's an order.
Yeah,
it is in divine order. I'm telling you.
Right, because when they assigned me my classes, and I had no idea as to what, in the class. I think we did Shakespeare last week. Last week and the week before last. And I had to read. I had to read this book in a week, and then write a paper on it.
Welcome to my life. Sometimes they give you that play. We had to read. Oh, what was it? It wasn't Hamlet. Maybe it was Julius Caesar, something like that. One of Shakespeare's. No, it was King Lear, and we had like a day or two, and then we had to go talk about it in class. So welcome to my life.
Yeah. Okay. You know what? I asked you that you have anything with that, but if you will, is there a line from a play that you would like to deliver before we go?
Let me see. Because I got
one of your favorites.
Well, let me see. So I'm gonna cheat. There's two in Macbeth that always come to me, especially when we're thinking about our current political landscape and who we're putting our trust in and all that. In Macbeth, the prince Malcolm, his father gets killed. One of the things he says before he runs away, so he can avoid getting killed, he says, "There's daggers in men's smiles." That's one I love. And another one he says is, "To show an unfelt sorrow is an office which the false man does easy."
Mm-hmm. Okay, can you do I wanted you to do like something like the famous "to be or not to be" lines, something along that line. You have something right off the top of your head?
Something right off the top of my head. I can.
All the World's a Stage.
I did do that character. Let me see what I can remember. Here, let me see. I think I can give you some Othello, but I'm gonna go as far as I can remember into it.
Yeah,
because it's been a little bit. Let me see. This fellow's of exceeding honesty, and knows all quality with the learned spirit of human dealings. If I do prove her haggard, though that her jesses were my dear heartstrings, I'd whistle her off and let her down the wind to prey at fortune. Haply, for I am black, and have not the soft parts of conversation that chamberers have, or for I am declined into the vale of years. Yet, that's not much. She's gone. I am abused, and my relief must be to loathe her. Oh, curse of marriage, that we can call these delicate creatures ours and not their appetites. I had rather be a toad and live upon the vapor of a dungeon than to keep a corner in the thing I love for others' uses. Yet, 'tis the plague of great ones. Prerogatived are they less than the base, 'tis destiny unshunnable, like death. Even now, this forked plague is fated to us when we do quicken. Soft, Desdemona comes. If she be false, oh, then heaven mocks itself. I'll not believe it. And that's what I got for today.
All right, King James.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
I gotta research that one too.
Was that the if you remember, was that the play that we saw at the Little Door Theater?
Yeah. Oh yeah, that's the one. That's the one you all came to. Yeah.
Right.
You know, you got a good memory.
Right. Okay.
You have a good
Craig,
memory.
thank you.
Oh, I love you.
Much success to you. Blessings, and we're looking for that play.
All right. Figure it out. We'll get it up there. We will.
All right then. We love you. Have a good one. Okay.
Thank you guys.
Thank you.
All right. And for those who are out there, I just want to let you know that next week we're going to be off for Thanksgiving. We're not going to be broadcasting next week. Boo. But we'll be back in 2 weeks. All right, Craig. Thank you. Take care.
All right.
Bye.
Oh, that was so good.